Good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order, and we'll start with our land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge the ground on which we live is the traditional territory of Caldwell First Nation, of the Three Fires Confederacy, and the original people of Point Pelee and Pelee Island and its surrounding lands and waters, and that of the Huron-Wendat and Wyandot peoples. We recognize and respect the First Nations who are stewards of the land and waters of Turtle Island and who have embraced this stewardship since time immemorial. We would also like to acknowledge contributions of other nearby First Nation communities and all original people across Turtle Island. We'll now have a moment of silent reflection, followed by the playing of our national anthem. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Okay, if we can get an adoption of the October 22nd, 2024 regular council meeting agenda. Moved by Councillor Burns, support by Councillor Richo Spagnolo. All in favor? That carries. Any disclosures of community interest? There being none. An adoption of the minutes of our regular meeting of council held October 8th, 2024 be adopted as presented. Moved by Councillor Reno, support by Councillor Desjardins. All in favor? And that carries as well. Mayor's comments. There are a few today. It is with profound sadness that we announce the passing of volunteer firefighter Bob Price. He was a LaSalle firefighter from 1997 until 2008. We would like to send our condolences to Bob's family, friends, as well as the LaSalle Fire Service. Visitation will take place at Families First on Dougal and on Wednesday, October 23rd from 1 to 4 p.m. and 6 to 9 p.m. with a firefighter walk-by at 7 p.m. Full details are available on the Family First website. This Saturday, October 26th, is our annual Truck or Treat event being held at the Vollmer Complex in Parking Lot 3, which is from 12 to 4 p.m. It is a fun event for the whole family, so come out, get some candy, check out the cool trucks, and don't forget to wear your Halloween costumes. Entrance fee is $3 per child. The town will host a Remembrance Day ceremony on Monday, November 11th at 11 a.m. at the LaSalle Cenotaph Park, and the ceremony will be also live streamed on the Town of LaSalle YouTube channel. This month's Monday with the Mayor is next week, which is October 28th, and I'll be available from 2 to 4 p.m., so stop by LaSalle Civic Center. No appointments are needed, and if you're unable to come during those hours, please reach out. We can schedule something else. Another very important date to mark down your calendar is Tuesday, October 29th, for the Howard Bouffard Secondary Plan Statutory Public Meeting. This meeting will be held here in Council Chambers at 4:30 p.m., and the town is looking for feedback from the public, so come have your say about how the Howard Bouffard area will grow in the future. Visit lasalle.ca/HBSP to find out more and to register to attend the meeting, speak at the meeting, or submit written comments to be included in the meeting agenda by this Friday, October 25th. We have no public meetings in our hearings. We'll go into our presentations and delegations, which is item number 1, which is the recognition award to Chris Cooper. I'm very, very honored to present this award to someone who I've known for a very long time. But Chris Cooper, he has shown an unwavering commitment to raising funds for cancer research right here in our community. Year after year, Chris has dedicated his time and energy to this important cause, ensuring that the funds remain local to support those in need. His tireless efforts not only contribute to vital research, but also inspires others to join the fight against cancer. I will say that I watch his Frozen 5K or whatever you're running now, and I'm in awe every year. And every year he hits a new number and raises a new amount of money that continues to support people in our own community. So it is my honor to present Chris with the certificate of appreciation. I know it's nothing big, but it's something to acknowledge everything you've done for our community. So if you could come on up to receive that certificate. Okay, moving on to item 2, which is the 2023 LaSalle Police Service Annual Report, and I'm going to invite Chief Pierce to join us for his first presentation of one of these reports.
Thank you. The 2023 LaSalle Police Service Annual Report was completed by Chief Davies prior to my appointment. In the interest of what I believe is going to be a full agenda, I'll keep the presentation brief. I'm going to focus on some of the stats and highlight those. In 2023, LaSalle saw an 8.06% increase in total complaint types, which equals 9,721 occurrences. Notable, there was a spike in 911 calls, 1,574 more than 2022, for a total of 4,353. That's a 56.64% increase. In speaking with Deputy Chief Woods, I'm told in large part that was as a result of a telephone provider, and they were having some issues with erroneous dials. So that shouldn't create too much alarm for us. We saw a reduction in violent crimes by 12.5%, but an increase in property crimes by 19.55%. And so when you look at the crime severity index, you'll see that, I'll speak about it in a moment, you'll see that our crime severity was reduced, which is good. But if you were to parse it out, it parallels that we saw about a 20% increase in property crimes in the crime severity index. There were 770 criminal occurrences reported, resulting in 350 criminal charges. And so the crime severity index did go down. It's currently at 25.5. Last year it was at 30.2. The StatsCan stopped ranking municipalities this past year. So we used to be able to say, I think last year we were 24th in the country. We would have to do an analysis individually on every municipality in order to see where we stand. But I did do it for Ontario, and we have the best crime severity index in Ontario for municipal police jurisdictions. We had 358 motor vehicle collisions, which is up from 22 last year. One of those involved a fatality. We had 18 impaired driving occurrences, and we had 19 roadside driving suspensions. So that might sound a little counterintuitive that we had 18 occurrences but 19 suspensions. That's because the 19 suspensions also includes like ride programs and officers doing interdiction rather than 18 people calling police about impaired drivers. Our strategic business plan is expiring at the end of this year, and we are already in full swing to prepare one for next year. I anticipate coming to the board with that probably in the next 2 months. Subject to any questions, that's the report.
Thank you very much. Members of council, any questions or comments with the report as presented? Just reminding you that it was created by retired Chief Duncan. Councillor Reno?
I'd just like to thank Chief Pierce for coming in and giving someone else's information. We will put your feet to the fire next year, although it is nice to hear that the crime severity keeps us in one of the safest positions in Ontario. So thanks for doing that little bit of extra work to remind us that we are moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. I can't see if Councillor Desjardins has any questions or not. If we can. No. Councillor Desjardins, do you have any questions?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry. You can't see me?
Not why we have the presentation up, but thank you.
Oh, yeah, okay. No, I'm good, thanks.
Great. As for a quick little, as board chair, I just want to thank you and your team and retired Chief Davies for the hard work in creating this annual report. I think the stats really do help show what's going on in our community, and yes, going that extra mile and kind of being able to show us where we stand. We always looked forward to that report because we always did end in a nice position, and it was a good thing to be able to promote the LaSalle Police. But you guys have done a lot of work back there in the last few years, and even since you've taken on this role, you've met with the public on several occasions. So I do look forward to the new strategic plan because I think it really will represent the community input as much as possible. So thank you for that. And if members of council, Councillor Reno, you have something else?
I apologize. The question is not for the chief. I've already said all the nice things I can for him. I do have a question for administration, though, possibly if Mr. Langlois could answer a question that was sent to me concerning the fur. And this is the first year I've heard about the fur, but I've learned a little bit about it. But I know that our FIR report shows us as being $10,277,000 for 2023, yet the annual report that we received only shows $9,200,000. The person is concerned, the resident is concerned. Where did that $1 million go? Is it in a different account? And how do we change by such a large amount of money, 10%?
For sure. So the LaSalle Police Service report includes, excuse me, revenue, whereas there's two different factors. The internal financial statements, it nets out revenue, I'm sorry, and the report includes just the expenses, so that's one part of it. And the other part is because the FIR is based on our audited financial statements, which are reported a little bit differently than our internal financial statements. It includes amortization on all the different capital assets, all the vehicles and whatnot. So that makes up the difference, the $1 million difference, those two amounts.
So those are numbers that policing wouldn't necessarily have. Those are things that get added from the financial department.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. So with that, the recommendation before us is that the 2023 LaSalle Police Service Annual Report, as presented by myself as chair and LaSalle Police Services Board Chief Michael Pierce, be received for information. Moved by Councillor Desjardins, support by Councillor Burns. All in favor? That carries. Thank you. Moving into our staff reports and correspondence for council's action. Item 1 is the application to remove the holding zone symbol for 1725 Sprucewood Avenue. And we will have our manager, Christine, yes, Ms. Bursick, report. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening. So I have a presentation, a little slideshow, I guess, if you will, with 2 slides up on the screen, just to aid in my mini presentation, if you will, for tonight. So the subject, the application, is file Z08-2024. It's an application for an H removal of the subject lands, which I've outlined in blue up on the map up on the screen. And the location of those lands is just south of Sprucewood, north of Normandy, and just east there of Newman. You may recall the lands outlined in red that may look familiar to you. That's 1725 Sprucewood. Over this past year, we have brought forward to Planning Act applications on those lands. Currently, the developer is looking to develop a mixed-use development there. And while they were undergoing a site plan for that property, they have acquired the blue portion that's up on the screen. As such, they're going to be undergoing, or they're currently undergoing an amendment to the property as a whole to increase the density a bit, and the blue portion will assist in some, by acting as parking area for that development. There are no zoning issues as a result of the acquiring the additional lands, nor of removing the H symbol on the lands, and administration is in support of the application for H removal. And at this time, if council has any questions, I'm happy to answer. As well, I'd like to indicate that Amy Farkas of Dillon Consulting is here to also answer any questions council may have, and she is here representing Dillon Consulting on behalf of the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members of council, do you have any questions regarding the report that's in front of us this evening? Councilor Reno?
No, I was just curious. With the red and the blue, I know it's to show us what the new area is versus the old. Is the red already ready to go and now we're just changing the blue, or are we changing all of it?
Through you, Mayor. So the developer is actually amending their site plan. So the plan that they originally had for just the red area is being slightly amended to add a few more units due to the increase in land area. They can get a little bit more density, fit a little bit more parking in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Desjardins, sorry, I have to ask you again if you have any questions.
No, I'm good, thanks.
Thank you. My only question is regarding the changes of what they had previously with the additional unit and the parking. Obviously, this increase of the parking is what's asked for, or is there more parking going to be considered than what's required?
Sure, it's a good question. So obviously, you know, a little bit more units, a little bit more parking is required per the zoning bylaw here. They have satisfied everything. They've actually gone through a minor variance and satisfied all the requirements we have to proceed with site plan approval.
Fantastic. That's the only question I had. If Councilor Richa Spagnolo.
Thank you. Through you, just a question. When you say a few, do you mean 3 extra units, or how many more units are you referring to?
If my mind remembers correctly, I think it was 7 more units.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. So the recommendations at the report of the Manager of Planning and Development dated September 26, 2024 regarding the request to remove the holding provision from the vacant land on Lorne Avenue be received, and that council approves the applicant's request to remove the holding zone symbol from the subject lands, and that administration prepares a corresponding bylaw for adoption once the required development agreement is properly executed by the corporation.
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Burns, support by Councilor Reno. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Item 2, the Matchett Intersections Improvement Options will be presented by our Manager of Engineering, Mr. Papucci.
Thank you. Mayor and members of council, this report here is to follow up on the status of the 2 intersections along Matchett, Morton and Sprucewood. I'll start by giving a brief summary of the intersection, the existing conditions, possible solutions that we prepared with R.C. Spencer, and the implications that these have for the cost and construction and timelines related to them. So, a short history, I'm sure most people here know about it. On the old Windsor Raceway site in the 2010s, early 2010s, a proposal was brought forth on the site on the Windsor side, and through the planning process, the town of LaSalle was able to ensure that the Matchett and Sprucewood intersection would see proper pedestrian facilities and a roundabout. Fast forward a few years, the development didn't go forward, so we weren't able to see those improvements at that intersection. But should that development proceed in the future, we would be able to get that intersection improvement, but at this time, we do not know where that stands. Then in the year, I think about a few years ago, we were asked to give a report on the intersection of the functionality and possible solutions. And that's when we brought in R.C. Spencer, and we did some analysis of the intersections and presented those results to council. And that was our last report in 2023, which said that the Sprucewood intersection has a level of service of D in the afternoon, which essentially is still a passing grade. It just sees some operational constraints. And we also at that time looked at Morton, just because it was adjacent, and that intersection has a good level of service, except that intersection experiences high collision rates. So we are looking at both these intersections together because we believe that they are connected. So after that meeting last year, administration went back to the drawing board, and we were looking at a functional design that would improve the safety and operations of these intersections. And by doing that, we were also trying to eliminate costs and any disruptions to the neighboring properties to facilitate a better operations generally for both intersections. And that's what we have up at the screen today. Aaron is here, and if you want to ask any questions about the functionality. But in short, at the Sprucewood intersection, what we needed to do is add a left turning lane along Matchett so that vehicles could queue to turn safely to make that left-hand turn. This would improve the level of service of the intersection, the amount of traffic going through there, trying to make that left. There wouldn't be conflicting lefts there. It's not similar to what an intersection that we just approved, say here on Church and Sandwich West, where I had a lot more pedestrian and cycling facilities because we don't have the room. So the intersection here meets all the design standards that are required and requirements. It's just not something that you might see. It's really, we're working bare bones here to facilitate improvements along Sprucewood and Matchett. I do want to point out that you'll see left turns along Matchett at Morton because even though a four-way stop is recommended at Morton, we feel that if there is a change in the traffic pattern along Sprucewood and an increased capacity for left turns at Morton, we believe that collision rates will decrease, and we would want to continue monitoring that intersection to ensure that's the case, and then if that isn't the case, make a further recommendation in the future. So this is our proposed design for the intersection that we've come back to with. You'll notice there is some sidewalks there on the town side. There is a left turn, and there's 8 signal heads there to facilitate traffic. The cost to complete the construction here is for the signal, and on the Sprucewood side, it's about $900,000. When you add in the works at Morton, which we're recommending is about $250,000 for those road works. And the reason why these numbers are so high is because on the town side, there is some culverts, there's some roadside ditches that need to just get filled in. So that adds to the cost, let alone all the road work and the signal costs. And then we are also recommending, because there has been a lot of requests for connectivity in this intersection, for sidewalks to connect from Matchett down to our trail system and where the sidewalks stop at Sprucewood. And that is about another $200,000 cost. So there's some significant costs here. The total is just shy of 1.5 million, and Oh, the schedule, yes, sorry, I said I'd talk about the schedule. So, to complete this work, we would be wanting to tender it during the wintertime and starting in the spring. We have Matchett Road, the Turkey Creek Bridge, which is just south of this intersection, going to construction in April. And we'll be shutting down Matchett for the duration of that project. So we would want to time this in that window. We don't expect it to take as long as the Matchett Road Bridge. There's a lot of work here that can be done off the road, like while traffic is happening. But it is something that we would want to complete at the same time to minimize the impact to commuters. The City of Windsor just did Ojibwe Parkway, and whenever you disrupt traffic, even by a lane, you can hear you see the vehicles disperse in different patterns. So by us closing Matchett, you're going to see vehicles traveling more to Front or to Malden. So we would like to time this work to eliminate as much disruption to the commuters as possible. So I'm here for questions. Aaron is here. He was able to do the report for us originally, as well as the functional design here. He's got a wealth of knowledge of this as well. But if you guys have any questions, I know there's some delegates as well, but if there's any questions, we'd be happy to have them.
Before I get to questions of council, I'm going to have the delegates present first, and then we can, if we need to, follow up with R.C. Spencer and Associates, and then we can ask questions if council's okay with that. Okay, so we're going to have Mike Fisher come up first. Just there, please. Thank you. There's a button, and just perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Mike Fisher, and I'm presenting on behalf of the Friends of Ojibwe Prairie. The Friends of Ojibwe Prairie is a registered charity and volunteer organization established in 1992, dedicated to promoting public awareness of the Ojibwe Prairie Complex and its unique biological, cultural, and historical importance. I'd like to begin by thanking Council and Administration for your strong support and partnership in the proposed National Urban Park in Windsor and LaSalle. The National Urban Park project is truly a transformational one for our region and has attracted national and international interest as an example of protecting biodiversity in urban areas through strong partnerships and reconciliation. I'd also like to thank Mr. Capucci for taking the time to update me on the Matchett intersection project and answer some of the questions I had. In reviewing the report presented to Council today, the Friends of Ojibwe Prairie would like to share a few recommendations for future reports and consultation, particularly in regards to the proposed modifications at the Matchett and Sprucewood intersection. The first recommendation is that proposed modifications to the Matchett and Sprucewood intersection be reviewed for impacts to traffic volume and traffic speed. Matchett is a key corridor for the proposed Windsor-LaSalle National Urban Park and is the home of the Ojibwe Nature Center. This past summer, traffic calming initiatives were implemented by the City of Windsor in this corridor to reduce speeds and increase safety for pedestrians and park visitors. These initiatives included the Friends of Ojibwe Prairie's sponsorship of a pedestrian crosswalk to help families cross more safely between Ojibwe Park and the Ojibwe Prairie Provincial Nature Reserve. We can be confident that modifications to increase traffic capacity on Matchett Road will lead to a degree of higher traffic volumes. We recommend that a future report for intersection modifications on Matchett and Sprucewood consider how traffic speed and volumes will be impacted in the Ojibwe Prairie Complex corridor. The second recommendation is that consultation with parks partners and environment NGOs take place. Matchett and Malden roads have been very well studied for species at risk road mortality. Unfortunately, we know that these roads have the worst mortality rates in Ontario as determined by Wildlife Preservation Canada. We recommend that the project add Parks Canada, Ontario Parks, the City of Windsor Parks Department, and Wildlife Preservation Canada to the list of organizations to consult to determine how potential changes in infrastructure, traffic volume, and speed could impact the ecological integrity of the parks. Given expertise and funding allocated for the Windsor-LaSalle National Urban Park in the latest federal budget, Parks Canada in particular may have resources to assist in the process of working to implement traffic best practices in a way that supports the goals of the park. The third recommendation is that there be an opportunity for community consultation. We recommend that public consultation opportunities be planned to help the community better understand how proposed modifications will impact traffic congestion, volume, and speed in this area, and that what these impacts would mean for residents, pedestrians, and drivers, as well as the ecological integrity of the adjacent sensitive natural areas. Providing an opportunity for feedback from First Nations partners in their traditional territory would be an important element as well. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present these 3 recommendations and for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions? All right, thank you. We will next ask Nancy Panchinson. I know I'm saying it wrong.
I know. It's a mouthful. Okay, good evening. And do we have the slide presentation? There we are. Good evening, Your Worship and councilors. My name is Nancy Panchinson and founder of Save Ojibwe. I have been involved with protecting this garden of rarities as an active citizen since 2005, when the city wanted to put a trucking route through Ojibwe Prairie. I have always recognized the beauty in Ojibwe and have learned so much more about this globally endangered natural area on this journey. Just look at the list of what Ojibwe is. We have some of the lowest natural areas of the province, yet currently some of the most beautiful and endangered. And we'll go to the next slide. And now it will get recognition, the recognition it deserves through recent developments of it becoming a Canadian's second ever urban national park. I know LaSalle cares about nature and the future economic benefits of this national park so close to our border. And we'll go to the next slide. I'm here today to speak for Ojibwe species and its endangered and threatened and impacts of changes to Matchett intersection. Biodiversity loss includes the number of species identified at risk and the pace to which they are added. And if you can see, there's been 11 that have been added since 2007 to 2015. They face a plethora of threats, traffic being the most dangerous. This recommendation makes it more convenient for traffic on Matchett, an old collector road that dissects or machetes the heart of Ojibwe and her species. Currently, there are 15 Blandings turtles left in the park. A female must be 18 years old to lay eggs, and this road has one of the highest road mortality rates for species in Ontario. We'll go to the next slide. The OMB never considered future traffic of the big box. Coco Paving had the ESA permit quashed during the hearing. We could not educate the OMB judge that traffic was never considered during the ESA permit because incredibly the ministry could not determine if the development would increase traffic. The city's resolution on September 8, 2014 on the proposed development states that the Matchett Sprucewood intersection, the developer will construct a traffic circle roundabout with appropriate approach legs, including all sewers, sidewalk trails, utilities, and install storm drainage to the satisfaction of the city engineer in the town of LaSalle. It is fiscally irresponsible to spend $1.1 million, aside from the sidewalks, on road work that will be paid by the developer. We have already seen a 5.5% tax increase for our residents. Please be prudent with our taxes and don't waste it to harass Ojibwe's endangered. Dr. Choquette, we'll go to the next slide. Herpetologist with wildlife preservation has been studying road mortality in the area for years. This slide shows where 91 endangered were killed in 2016 in a 24-hour period. Next slide. And this slide shows the road mortality of 40 endangered killed in 2019 in 1 month. And we'll go to the next slide. In 2021, a 9-week survey, technicians tallied 827 dead animals, 490 dead reptiles, almost 100 endangered and threatened. Sadly, 2021 was a record year for road mortality in Ojibwe, and it's likely our residents that are responsible. We'll go to the next slide. Other communities are showing leadership. Kitchener, Brantford, Region of York, by temporarily closing roads for one endangered species, the salamander. LaSalle should give attention to this rather than directing more traffic to a road incurring the highest road mortality. We'll go to the next slide. And here's some examples of other communities. And if you can just see some of the comments, you know, this is what being Canada is like. Stuff like this makes Canada great. We'll go to the next slide. While Malden and Matchett is the preferred route, this graphing shows time taken during afternoon rush hours. They're not significant detour terms in time. It's not physically responsible at a cost of $1.1 million to maim, harass additional species and pay for something that will be free for taxpayers. And also, just to add, spring is when species are migrating, so to build it during spring will be even a larger impact on our species. And we'll go to the last slide. This road is not about protecting one species, it's about safeguarding our shared environment, ensuring that future generations can experience the richness of our natural world. It's about creating a strong, caring, and vibrant community, support protecting this jewel, and not compromising it further. We need Ojibwe for our basic needs: clean air, water, flooding prevention, and other climate factors. Embrace it and hold it dear. Don't waste our hard-earned money. Please do not support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Members of council, any questions for Nancy? Councilor Reno?
Actually, my question is for administration. It's my understanding that this is a capital project. It was mentioned that our taxes would go up for this. Could I get that confirmed? If we have no tax increase this year, and this is the only project we were to do, would our taxes go up for this, or is this taken from a reserve account?
It's still 1.1 million, Jeff.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
We're going to go to administration.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any roads-related project comes out of the roads reserve. You know, we have about $17 million in there right now, so, you know, we can do $17 million worth of work at this point in time. So, you know, if you use it for one project, it might not be able to use it for another that was planned, but at this point, it will not affect the tax rate at this point. It just might prioritize over some other projects.
Okay, the question was just related to the comment that we have to be fiscally responsible and that our tax rate could go up because of it, so I just wanted that confirmed.
I wasn't saying our tax rates would go up. I was just saying they have already gone up this year, and let's use our money properly.
Okay,
That's
fair
all
enough.
I was saying.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank
Nancy. Members of council, if you want to have time to have questions, comments, this is it. Anybody have anything to add? Questions? Councilor Reno?
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of the questions have to do with some of the things that we have experienced in the last couple of years. One of the things is that we know that Malden Road is a big project for us, a project that we've been working on basically my entire 10 years that I've been here, and that this is a priority for us. And the biggest concern is that once we start closing up Malden Road and we start inconveniencing people, they're probably going to be moved to Matchett Road. We witnessed this happen in the last 2 years as I think Ojibwe Parkway or Sandwich Street or any of the names of that long road that goes along the water has been closed at least 3 times in the last 2 years. And every time it has caused more anger and more people flooding over to Matchett. My concern is that this project can be done timely and done before we break ground on Malden. Now, the last report I got on Malden, or we got on Malden, was that there'd be property acquisitions going on right now, and that we would be looking at a shovel in the ground after Christmas. Now, I understand that there's been some delays in there and some new things that have come up. I just want to get an idea of the timeline for Malden Road and how it would be affected if we were to move forward with this improvement.
Thank you for the question, through you, Madam Mayor. If we were to move ahead with this work in the new year, as Mr. Capucci suggested, the timeline may be, it would happen well in advance of road construction on Malden. The first construction that's going to take place on Malden is utility relocations done by Enbridge. So once we get through the property acquisition portion, then we can move into Enbridge, and it will be a bit longer to get like the road portion of construction done on Malden. What I can say is when we do start the road work on Malden, the intent is to have a lane open in each direction for the majority of the time. Not to say that it'll be, there'll still be an inconvenience that comes along with it, turning movements and things like that. But the intention is not to close Malden, it's to keep it open as much as possible. There will be times where maybe we can't here and there, but that's the overall intention. However, I would expect that, yes, to your point, some traffic would move over to match it, just for out of convenience. So we feel comfortable that we could get the intersection work done if it's approved prior to any real road work starting on Malden.
Okay, a supplemental question. Realizing that we have another big project that's coming up on Front Road with our stormwater outfalls, and knowing that that's progressing quite nicely, is there a chance that that could be disrupted? From a lot of the things that I remember from the open houses, there would be construction on Front Road, there'd be some changing of infrastructure under the road. So is it fair to say that is going to be another route through town that will be disrupted in the next 3 years, 2 years?
Yes, it is definitely another project that will affect the traffic flows within there. Again, with Front Road, it's luckily we have a little more room to work with as far as lanes capacity, but there will be times where lanes will be closed to facilitate sewer work. There's also a large amount of pump station work to do with that project. I imagine that will happen first. So the road work isn't as imminent, but it will be coming, and it is, they do all kind of tie into each other with respect to like where the traffic goes. And as we know more, as we get a little clearer vision of exactly when some of these timings line up, we'll be back to council with a bit of an updated scheduling type report. But we want to get a little better handle on when everything's lining up. However, this project would, I think, safely be in advance of both of those projects.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reno. Councillor Burns.
Thank you, Your Worship. I ran in the last election on getting this intersection looked after. Been on council on and off for 27 years. The last 10 years, that corner has become more of a malfunction. It doesn't function properly anymore. The backups are tremendous. The people on the west side can't even get out of their driveways from basically 6:30 to almost 8 o'clock. Unfortunately, whoever's using that road are not courteous enough to let them in. So it's a problem. The sidewalk is not interconnected at that point. So it kind of looks funny to me in our town that's rated one of the best to live in Canada, that I would come down a major road like Matchett and see a stop, basically a barrier there saying no more sidewalks for the next 500 feet or whatever it is. So I was asked during the election to make this happen. I asked for the initial report, so I will be voting for it because I think something needs to be done. It's not going to get any better. It's only going to get worse. And before we put the four-way stops up, there was an accident there almost every other day with somebody in the ditch in the city of Windsor or somebody on our side. So it fulfills kind of a promise that I made during the election, and I'm certainly glad for administration bringing this forward. I also do know from the mayor of Windsor, they are not interested in doing anything for the next 10 years. Not 5 months, 10 years. There is nothing that I know of that's going on at that situation. And if we allow a situation knowingly to get worse, I wonder what responsibility we have after bringing this up and saying we're going to do it and not do it. What liability does the town take on? I certainly understand, Ms. Nancy, and your concerns. We've had many talks over the years. My neighbor down the street. I'm not really sure that we're going to incur much more traffic only when there's a road closure. We saw it for a month when the city did, I call it Highway 18 over. I mean, you couldn't even get around the roundabout out here. You couldn't half an hour to get to the corner on Matchett. And that's a road that I've used for numerous years when I worked every day. And it needs to be done and fixed. And I'm glad that the money is coming out of the reserves that we put away. So that will at least have no impact on next year's budget. So I will be voting for this. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Councillor Riccio Spagnolo?
Thank you. So my thoughts on this is, I do believe that that I will be moving forward with the recommendation. We've had a lot of residents who want the improvements on the road, the sidewalks on Sprucewood. The safety impact is tremendous. We don't know when the developer and if the developer is going to follow their, I guess, their agreement to assist with that development. So at this time, I am for the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Desjarlais, I think I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Through you, with my colleagues, I agree that we need to do something. I am not prepared to wait another 5 or 10 years for the city of Windsor to decide to perhaps do something with that intersection and that chunk of property. I think we have a huge safety issue there without sidewalks. We have a lot of young families that have moved into the area. We have school buses. I think we need to look at the sidewalk situation. I think that with it coming out of reserves, as Councillor Burns said, I'm a little more comfortable with that than a straight tax chunk coming out, if you will. I would suggest that we go ahead with this recommendation. I think that if we don't, the liability for the town of LaSalle is terrible. We have prided ourselves forever on being a very safe community, and I think that this only adds to it. And I would be willing to move forward, as I said, with the recommendation, and that we get this started as soon as possible to alleviate any other issues that we're going to have.
Thank you very much. I have a few comments and questions. My first one, maybe to Aaron, if you could possibly answer. One of the comments earlier was this will increase traffic capacity, or is it going to worsen traffic calming measures that have been in place? Are we going to see an increase in speed and volume by doing this type of upgrade to that intersection?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So I'm going to maybe start with the existing configuration, which is an always stop control. Most people make the mistake of assuming that an always stop control is going to calm traffic. I think in effect it probably does the opposite. Just makes drivers impatient and drive faster. It's actually recommended in the Ontario Traffic Manual not to use always stops as a traffic calming device. So, I mean, there are other options for traffic calming. One of those is narrow lanes. We're pretty narrow on these lanes because we're really squeezing it in there to make this work without having an adverse impact on the area. All the work is contained within the right-of-way, so under the guidance from the EA, the municipal class EA process, this basically gets a green light because everything's contained within the right-of-way. Within the grand scheme of what we're trying to do here, though, in terms of traffic and whatnot, it does provide an operational benefit. I did take a look at if we didn't put in the left turn lanes, what would we get? I mean, operations are relatively the same because most of that traffic is kind of just going through and not necessarily making turning movements at the intersection. However, if someone wants to turn left, you can imagine that left turn then blocks all the traffic behind. If someone doesn't signal properly, it can lead to rear-end type collisions, and that's what we usually see in these kinds of configurations. Those intersections do exist across the county. They're not the safest intersections, and so what's being proposed is for an operations benefit, but also from a safety benefit on just a minimum length left turn lane to allow those left turns to get kind of out of the way. But again, when you see traffic signal operations, I do think that they actually slow down the traffic because as you approach a signal, you become cautious that there may be, someone that wants to turn right or something like that. But in the grand scheme of what we're trying to achieve here, I do think that we will see the same or about the same traffic volumes. People are pretty standard in the way that they maneuver. And I don't think that the always stop right now is a deterrence in any way from someone going in a different route that may now change their traffic pattern.
Thank you. I had written down a few notes when Mr. Fisher and Mr. Panchano were speaking about their presentations, and that was one of the concerns was the traffic calming measures, speeds and volume impacts. So I think you've addressed that for me. one question I have for you as well is we're looking at that second intersection of Morton and Matchett. And at that intersection, it was a recommendation for a four-way stop, but we're actually going to look at instead doing the turn lanes. Which I agree with, seeing how that intersection at Sprucewood and Matchett operates. Can you install a four-way stop after you've installed turn lanes? I'm trying to remember an intersection in Windsor Essex that's a four-way stop with the straight lanes as well as turn lanes, and I can't figure out one. Which one? Heritage. Okay, not as high volume, but yes, now I know which one.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I could give another example. Little River at Banwell is also similar, always stop, multiple lanes. Again, not super ideal, and that's part of the why I encourage staff to take a look at not putting it in. The reason that an always stop was even on the table is simply because of the collision warrant. It's not warranted from a volume or capacity perspective. And again, the Ontario Traffic Manual does clearly identify that you should be looking at other mitigating strategies apart from just slapping up, an always stop or slapping up a traffic signal to solve your problems. They do recommend that you look at less impactful strategies. So what part of the recommendation is that we evaluate how the left turn lanes improve things. I think for sure they will mitigate rear end type collisions. And then we can monitor and see. Unfortunately, the way that the warrants are written, they're all reactive in nature. So we do kind of have to do the wait and see approach, but it is the best way to proceed in this kind of a situation.
Thank you, I appreciate that information. My question to administration would be, with the Matchett Bridge construction, what is the time frame for the closure?
It's going to be closed from April to June, the end of June. July 1st, we intend the Matchett to be open again.
Thank you. Okay, that helps, because my concern was we were putting in these lights, then closing this road, and then we would have this traffic sitting there at a signal where really there's no traffic going each way, but really by the time this is constructed, it should have no impact on each other.
Correct. Yeah, and then the timings will be set and we can adjust as necessary, but ideally it'll be the signals will be done, say in June or in May, and then if the bridge gets done quicker, they'll be out at the same time. So people who have found another route not using the Matchett anymore will start using Matchett because the bridge is open, and they'll also see that there's new signals at that Sprucewood intersection.
Thank you very much. I do believe that timing of this project is extremely important, knowing how many things we have going on in the community and how it can be very frustrating for all of us to be able to travel through the town during any time of the day, really. So that, I think, is extremely important. One of the concerns also brought forward was the high rate of mortality for reptiles and animals on this roadway. When looking at the presentation, however, I do see that it's actually higher on Todd Lane and Malden than it is on Matchett. So if we do this improvement, I don't think it'll worsen the situation, which is what we're trying to do, right? We want to protect our natural area, and we as the town of LaSalle believe that's very important as well. So I looked at your stats and the information you provided us, and I don't necessarily agree that this is going to worsen the situation. I think that if anything, it'll slow people down on that road, and I do think the improvements the City of Windsor has done in the last year with the Friends of Ojibwe really have helped, and I hope to see the stats show that. And then just to clarify a few points that have been discussed over the past few months, I know one of the comments was community consultation. I think we've had that. I know we haven't had the formal open house meeting, but I think our community has been extremely vocal about their frustration with that intersection, and I think that we've heard that they want to see something sooner than later. And if we keep waiting for that area to be developed, we're easily 5, 10, 15, 20 years in the future. I mean, we've already waited this long. It doesn't make sense for us to keep doing this, and this situation is only going to get worse as the town of LaSalle continues to grow, and we are growing. We have had the conversations. I know that was another concern by residents, that we haven't had conversation with the owners of the racetrack lands or the City of Windsor. We have, and that's why we're here today, because there is no solution coming from those parties. They are not looking to do improvements to that intersection. So at this point, it has to be up to us if we want to make that change, because it does affect our residents more than it affects the city of Windsor. And the other thing I did want to clarify, I did see a lot of comments come in about our options of a intersection with signals or a roundabout, and as stated earlier, we can't fit a roundabout in the land that we are able to work on. In order to be able to consider a roundabout, the entire intersection would have to be shifted into the city of Windsor, and that's a completely different discussion. That would have to be done through the city of Windsor, as they would have to expropriate land and other things to be able to make something like that work. I'm happy with the presentation that's come forward. I think it's a solution that's fair, knowing that we have the money in the reserves, and we're also going to be able to complete those sidewalks that have been requested. I think it really is a win-win, and I'm excited for it because I really do think our residents have been asking for this for a very long time. So I'm satisfied with everything, unless council has any more questions or comments tonight. No? Councillor Reynolds?
Just one for our representative. It was suggested to me that R.C. Spencer was involved in our transportation master plan 4 years ago. Is that correct? Were they?
Sorry, I'll just get you to turn off the mic there, if you could.
Okay, yeah. So it was suggested that they were. I'm just wondering, in your research and your study, if you went back and looked at the transportation master plan and the types of rates of cars and things like that compared to now, because back then, you know, there were some comments on it, but it didn't suggest any changes at the time. But now we feel that things have gotten worse. But is there any data to show that have gotten worse?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So I personally was not involved in it. However, I guess I can speak to it. Naturally, over time, we do see kind of an area growth, typically about 2% per year. That's usually what we do when we do our traffic impact studies, assume kind of an annual compounded growth rate of 2%. That's very typical for some areas with high growth, maybe about 3%. But realistically, somewhere between 1 and 2% annual growth compounded is typical. So when we're looking at this corridor specifically, again, there are constraints obviously in terms of the capacity. There are other options, and it does depend on where people live and where the development is happening. I mean, traffic doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It needs to be generated by something, so either development or something more significant, like people moving into the area in higher densities. So I hope that answers your question as far as the growth in terms of the area.
Just, I guess my question, knowing that our master plan was done over 4 years ago, and knowing that we could be compounding at 3%, it's fair to say that anywhere from 12 to 15% more cars are now going through there and causing more headaches.
I think that is a fair statement. However, without looking at the data and collecting regular traffic data to that effect to evaluate, there's really no way of doing that. I mean, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, you are due for a new transportation master plan. Recommendation is every 5 years, so that's something to consider. Yeah.
All right, I actually appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? No, there being none. There is a recommendation in front of you. If anyone has anything different they would like to recommend, please let me know. Otherwise, the recommendation is that the report of the Manager of Engineering dated September 19th, 2024 regarding Matchett intersections improvement options be received, and that R.C. Spencer and Associates finalizes the detailed design of the Matchett Sprucewood intersection to include signals and protected left turn lanes on Matchett Road, and that R.C. Spencer and Associates finalizes the detailed design of the Matchett Morton intersection to include turning lanes on Matchett Road, and that administration brings forward the temporary intersection improvements with sidewalks for council consideration as part of the 2025 proposed capital budget.
Move the recommendation.
So I have a mover first, so if we can do that first, and then if you want to speak to a change.
Okay.
Okay, so we have moved by Councillor Burns, support by Councillor Regis Spagnolo, and go ahead, Councillor Reno.
I was just wondering if we could add the addition that 1 year after it opens, that we could actually reevaluate the Morton and Matchett intersection, as we were unsure whether or not we want the four-way stop there. So can we just direct administration to 1 year after opening to prepare something?
I would consider that a friendly amendment.
Okay, so I'll get that, and are you okay with that as well? And then Mr. Milsha.
Again, we understand where council's coming from in trying to reevaluate that intersection. It may be a bit problematic because of the number or the amount of construction activity we have in the area. It will, as we do work on Matchett, obviously Front and Malden will be affected. Once we start doing work on Malden, Matchett and Front will be affected. So it may not be, we can certainly come back, but I would just caution council in that may not be the best of timeframes just because of the ancillary construction we have in the area.
My question to you would be, though, when would be a good time? Because Malden Road construction could be 2, 3, 4, 5 years of stuff between Malden Road and Front Road, and when would we reconsider?
I look to the engineering staff. 1 year might be a bit tough, but I'd look to them to provide a recommendation.
I think, and maybe Aaron can help me with this one too, but when we look at collision data, you're not just looking at 1 year, you're looking at a longer period of time than that anyway when you're doing an analysis. But the other thing we could do is with the help of LaSalle Police, over the next couple of years, monitor the collision data there. And if it seems, like it's still out of whack, so to speak, maybe we bring something sooner than later to council. If everything is going well, maybe it's not quite that soon based on, like Mr. Milsha said, some of the other construction activities. So that may be something we could do, is just internally keep an eye on the collision data over the next year or so and get a sense. And but I think when we really analyze the intersection, you want to have like 3 years of collision data to make an accurate assessment.
I'll have you maybe kind of assist.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. So to warrant a traffic signal, I believe it's 15 collisions over the course of 3 years is kind of the threshold. But the kinds of collisions need to be collisions that could be mitigated by like a higher form of traffic control. We're not talking like in the winter, the conditions, for example, result in someone rear-ending someone else. Another example would be, a drunk driver. Those aren't kinds of collisions that you can mitigate by traffic control improvements, if you get what I'm saying. So you do kind of want to look at it closely in terms of that warrant threshold. And if you have your own police service, which is great, and you can account for that data, which is great, you can get a sense of what the nature of the collisions are and can they be mitigated by a higher form of traffic control. So I would say if you're looking to shoot for something over the course of the year, 5 collisions would be a good, I guess, mark by which you can evaluate, does it make sense to put an always stop?
Councilor Reno?
Actually, if I could just ask for an update at the 1 year point. We don't need to change the world at that point. And at that point, if there are other mitigating factors that are affecting your data, you can explain it at that point. Just an update would be fine. Thank you.
Chief Pierce?
We will be able to provide that data at the end of next year as to where collisions occur. So if we're looking at a single intersection, we'll be able to provide the data for that.
Thank you very much. So we had a motion, we did have an amendment, which, can you clarify your amendment just so we can make sure that they?
I would like to direct administration to come back with an update as to the improvements at that intersection in 1 year. I'm sorry? I'm sorry, with Matchett and Morton. The one that I have to turn down to come here every time.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Osborne.
Sorry, not to be the person that clarifies motions, but one year after it opens, correct? Not 1 year from now, because that would be different.
Yes, that is how I originally stated it. Thank you for reminding me.
Okay. Everyone's clear? Okay. So we have a mover, we have support, all in favor. Opposed? No one? That carries. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Nancy and Mike as well, for joining us and presenting today. Item number 3 is the November 11th, 2025 council meeting. you've seen the report. I'm not sure if a member of administration needs to give you any more information on that, but as you can see, Remembrance Day does fall on a council meeting next year, 2025, and you have two options presented to you, which is A, the regular council meeting be moved to a new date, or B, the regular council meeting on November 11th, 2025 be canceled. If council wishes to reschedule the meeting, administration recommends moving this meeting to the Monday, which would be November 10th, 2025, or to the Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. Members of council, comments, questions? Councilor Reno.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've always believed that we shouldn't be closing business when we have other things going on that there may be happening. That's right before budgets. So I agree that we should not be having a meeting on the 11th, but I do believe that we should find an alternate date to make sure that we can move forward the business of the municipality.
Thank you. I was just clarifying, we didn't have county council on the Wednesday, just before we made that discussion. Okay, any other questions or comments regarding that, or opinions on the date, closing, anything? Councilor Burns?
I would think we should go to the Monday, the day before, the
You-
11th.
Do you mean move the meeting to the
Yes.
Monday?
If you have county council.
We don't have our dates yet for that. I know we do occasionally have our Mondays as our police service board meetings as well. We may have to look at changing that date, but that's something we can work on. And yeah, it's up. Any other questions, comments, concerns? So if someone wants to make a motion?
I would make
Councillor-
a motion that we go Monday or Thursday, whichever is the easiest for administration.
Monday is probably best. Monday administration.
10th, okay?
Okay. Is council's okay with that? Councilor DeJarle, did you have a question or just?
No,
making
I'm
a
just
motion?
seconding the motion.
Perfect. So moved by Councilor Burns and supported by Councilor DeJarle that the November 11th, 2025 meeting be changed from Tuesday to the Monday. Was that good? Okay. All in favor? That carries. Consent agenda. There are 4 items on your consent agenda. Are there anything anybody wants to take out and speak to directly? If not, we can receive them all at once.
Receive?
Moved by Councilor Burns, support. Councilor Riches-Bagnolo, all in favor? That carries. Committee matters. We have the Essex County Council highlights for October 2nd, 2024. And the recommendations just to receive those minutes. Anybody? Councilor Riches-Bagnolo. Can I get support by Councilor DeJarle? All in favor? And that carries. Item 2, Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting was held May 15th, 2024. And the recommendations that the minutes of the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting dated May 15th, 2024 be received. Moved by Councilor Reno, support by Councilor Burns. All in favor? And that carries. Any questions or statements by council members? Councilor Reno?
Knowing that we have a couple holidays coming up, I'm just wondering if we have a approximate date as to when the lights will be turned on at the Civic Center.
We do have that information available. I will have Ms. Finero, I could pull up my calendar, but go ahead.
Thank you for the question. Just pulling up my calendar here myself. It looks like it's Friday, November the 22nd, correct? At 6 o'clock is when the official lighting starts.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? Nope. Yep, Mr. Milsha?
Just with council's indulgence, we have had a sequence of events, unfortunately, that has resulted in the delay of the pour of what we internally know as the LaSalle Loop, which is the multi-season, multi-use trail at the LaSalle Landing site. So if council will recall, we did have a report before council at the end of September, which was approved and authorized a noise bylaw exemption until the end of October. It appears that they're having some difficulties coordinating with some of the subcontractors, and so we have extended that that noise bylaw exemption to November 14th. So just so that council is aware, and obviously the community is aware, that we have extended it. We're hoping that a target date is somewhere in the early part of November, but it is a large undertaking in terms of, and with many moving parts and lots of concrete. So we're hoping that that happens at early November. To date, we do not believe that it is going to affect the opening date, but I will say that if we have any more unforeseen circumstances, we may have that, and we'll be back to council with that. But for now, we still are on target with the opening date. We've just had to push back the pour for some, again, some coordination issues that the contractor is having. So just wanted to make council aware, and certainly the community aware as well.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Reno?
Just a question for our CAO. Is there a date that we can no longer work into the winter or anything? If something was to go horribly wrong, I mean, could we still continue working on the project and possibly open it in January if something was to go astray?
I don't believe so, but I know our engineering folks are on top of that project. They might have a better answer than I don't know.
What do you mean by everything goes wrong?
Well, I did not mean everything goes wrong. I guess what I'm trying to say is that if for some unforeseen circumstance happens and we can't pour until a week after, is there some date that says, oh no, we're in the winter, we can't build buildings anymore, we can't lay cement? I mean, I know cement doesn't dry, it cures. So I'm just wondering, even if the worst of case scenarios, we could still possibly be opening a few weeks later.
Correct. Yeah. But if we got a 2-week window here that we're going to hit, weeks or a couple weeks after that, that's it. Like, we have to hit these next 2 weeks. Other construction matters can happen, but just the nature of this concrete pour, the temperatures and the wind and everything has to be perfect for us to hit it. And the coordination, we have to have all the crews and everything on site. So we have like a good 2 to 3 week window that we're going to hit, but it's not like other types of winter work where we can be pouring this trail in the middle of December. This is a November job, and then we can continue all the other parts of the project, because it's more than just the trail. There's a lot of other facets to this that we need to complete, and all those are still happening on the site as it goes on, but some of them are like going to be winter work, which we're fine, but this particular pour has to be within the next 3 weeks. Yeah.
I appreciate that answer, and I will tell you, if you don't get all 45 trees planted by Christmas, I will forgive you.
Any other questions or statements? Notices of motion? Okay. We have no reporting of a closed session. So we would go into our bylaws, and we are recommending the following bylaws be given a first, second, third reading and finally passed, and there are 3 of them. 8927, a bylaw to repeal bylaw 8905, and to authorize the execution of a lease extension agreement between Bella Vista Holdings Incorporated, LaSalle Bella Vista Limited, and the Corporation of the Town of LaSalle. 8931, a bylaw to authorize the execution of lease extension agreement between the Corporation of the County of Essex and the Corporation of the Town of LaSalle for the Emergency Medical Services Station. And 8932, a bylaw to authorize the donation of parts 2, 3, 4 on reference plan 12R28633 with Christopher James Bazaire, James Allen Bazaire, and the estate of Marianne DePape. So I have those 3 for first, second, third reading, and finally passed. Moved by Councillor Desjardins, support by Councillor Regis-Spagnolo. All in favor? And that carries. Confirmatory bylaw, which is bylaw 8933, be given a first, second, third reading, and finally passed. Councillor Burns and Councillor Reno, all in favor? That carries. Schedule of meetings below. Thank you for attending in person, as well as those who joined us online. Have a good night.